Laura Magdalene Eisenhower is a brilliant, soul-reaching teacher and healer. She is recognized around the globe by clients, psychics, and secret societies as a living global oracle and a true archetype of Sophia Magdalene on Earth. She is also the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and since her early years has felt a profoundly strong calling to serve humanity and assist us in breaking free of the false matrix and misuses of power that threaten freedom. Growing up around political leaders and influential people, Laura easily learned to access the part of her nature that will not rest until global freedom, justice, and peace prevail on Earth. Over time, she developed an excellent knowledge base in frontier health, natural systems, alchemy, metaphysics, and ancient history. She holds degrees and certifications in science, wilderness expedition leadership, and natural healing. With great passion and courage, Laura is helping to return the sacred union, divine wisdom, and many facets of the goddess that have been buried and forgotten for millennia. Rising from the depths, she restores the tree of life, opens us up to our divine blueprint, and brings to life the love story of creation. And let me introduce Laura Eisenhower.
Hello, everybody. Let's figure out this mic thing. Well, I've had an interesting trip getting here. I've been almost derailed by what felt like some kind of attacks or some weird energy about maybe opening my mouth, but I'm kind of used to it, so let's take a deep breath. And yeah, so it's interesting because the last person that spoke was talking about Jesus Christ, Catholicism, Satan, ETs, and some very, very important things. I'm not here to claim I'm some reincarnation of anybody. I'm not here to give myself that sort of attention or power. I'm kind of here to be a mirror, awakening that in everybody else, because this is a part of our divine blueprint. We have the Christ consciousness. We also have the Sophia Magdalene energy, Virgin Mary. These were some main figures that were sent from the Creator, who are the true loving creators that have realized, we're in a very big dilemma because of these archonic forces. Is there any chance I can? And these archonic forces were established, obviously, in the beginning, around the time of the Big Bang. Something called the pleroma, which is the heavens, and the aeons that emerged from the galactic core leaked. It was like the energy was so intense that a portion of it spilled out on the other side and into basically the primordial sea of chaos. And that being that was on the other side felt locked out. And all these emotions of fear and bewilderment and confusion started to persist. And in that, the creation of the archons happened. Now, this is, not just philosophy. This is not just something I dreamed up. This is actually in texts that have been destroyed. It's a Gnostic understanding. And basically, we don't hear about this much. We don't hear about Sophia in religion either, but we do hear about Mary Magdalene and the Virgin Mary, who are very much tied into this character. And so ever since I was young, I just felt this incredibly strong connection to her. And I had this feeling when I was a kid that I had been buried alive somehow, or somehow the divine feminine energies were lost or somehow forgotten. And this is such a potent and important force for us all to awaken to, because it connects us with nature, with Gaia, and with the creative force of spirit. And this has been very suppressed. So we have demonic consciousness. We have the inversion of all this. We have rituals that pervert the divine will and hope and intention of the Supreme Being. And this competition has sort of happened because duality was created when there was that leak. Now, it's not about blame, because our Creator had no intention of these things being created. And there's no real being you can tie to it, because it's a portion of the emotional body of the Sophia energy that she sent her daughter, Magdalene, to help redeem and help correct. And it also has to do with the masculine energies and the fact that there was some dialogues happening to set up the divine plan to bring these beings into the flesh to help instruct us and awaken us to who we truly are. Now, I'm not going to claim that I'm one of them. It might have been pointed out in my life that I am, or certain things have revealed a blueprint or a code that connects me strongly to this. I'm perhaps not the only one. I don't think I'm even remotely the only one. I think everybody's made of it. But it was definitely brought to my attention that this was strong, it was profound, it was something that I couldn't ignore. It was not something I made up because I wanted to be, this. At times, I've begged the universe to give me a break and please can I just have a rest from this path, even though I say in my bio, I will not rest. And it's true. That's the problem. As much as I'd like to rest, I still can't because, every day, 24/7, I'm on this very powerful mission that I know we're going to have victory in. But there's just, a lot that needs to be done, and there's a lot that we need to know about. Consciousness and energy is what makes up everything. This is why manipulation is such, because as long as we're dumbed down, we can easily be controlled, and we know this. So in order to take our power back from the 10% that are running the show, millions and millions of us can just truly step into who we are and realize that, yes, there are satanic, ET, lower races, archons that like to mess with your minds. They abduct. They want to preserve basically their species, so they can only think of self-preservation. They don't care about anything except for staying alive. They don't have morals. They're like parasites, and they're kind of running the show using humans as hosts. But really, we do come from the Creator. That's the one difference of opinion, or maybe just a few different thoughts that I have that aren't quite the same as our last speaker, but all in all, I thought his message was incredible, of course. But we aren't just here as a reseeded civilization that a satanic force has created. The goddess Sophia morphed into the physical planet. When she saw that the archonic system had taken hold of it before humanity had really flourished, she morphed her physical body into the planet in order to protect it from being overtaken by these forces. She's the cosmic mother. She's the womb of everything. She's got many, many faces and names, including Lilith, Inanna, Ariadne, and Kali. And basically we hear about this, in matriarchal cultures. There was a time where the goddess did reign and there was balance. There was no disease. Everything was actually good. And there's proof of this. If you go to places like England and go to some of these castles, you'll see glyphs like this, the labyrinth. And I hadn't really studied all this. I was just on my path doing what I was doing. I left my body for 20 years. I went in all these different dimensions, and I was, trying to bust through these different dimensional frequencies because there's a stargate that they've been trying to keep shut, a natural stargate. So I had this instinct as a kid that I needed to go off on this adventure. Nothing I could really tell anybody about because they'd think I was loopy, which they did anyway, but that's okay. So, it took me about 20 years, but, there was always this sort of reassurance, you're almost done, it's going to be okay, just, this is all just a part of the day's work, and it was about really busting through gatekeepers, different archetypes, different games, different forces that have grabbed a hold of this feminine energy. So in a sense, I became transparent. There wasn't really Laura anymore. It was like I just became almost like a part of the planetary body that Sophia had morphed into, and took it upon myself to do something about preserving this natural stargate, which connects to the Venus transits, which connects to the return of the divine feminine energies. And so, of course, Christ was my greatest ally. And as much as religion does help, and yes, religion has been pretty much ruined, even the word God has been ruined. People are like, God, Goddess is a little friendlier to some people because they've already, done a number, the Freemasons. So anyway, so I go on this journey, and I'm just doing what I'm doing, and I have just planetary chaos around my third eye, and I'm just processing every day, and I'm just a little kid. I started this at age 8, and I had, some interesting occurrences where things would come in my dreams, very prophetic dreams, that progressed later on to the point of even blowing a whistle exploded all these robots. And then later on, I realized, wow, I'm a whistleblower. Maybe this will help. Maybe this is connected. Because truth is a high frequency. Spirit is a high frequency. These things cannot stand. It's like, kryptonite is to Superman, except for the other way around. It cannot stand consciousness. It cannot stand creative power, personal power, awareness and awakening. And so we have all the tools. We simply need to really come together more, be more supportive of each other, and really rally around this. Well, during my adventures, as far as some of the gatekeepers and resistances to really stepping into bringing this energy out of suppression, out of exile, I was recruited to go to Mars in 2006. It was a very sophisticated agenda basically having to do with establishing, which they did with Alternative 3, I believe during the Eisenhower administration, that there would be colonies set up on Mars to protect the human genome, which is all very well. But in further investigation, I found out a lot more than I was really ready to handle. The first instinct when I got invited to Mars was, no, sorry, but we can still date, right? I mean, everything will be okay. You know, I'll just convince you to stay on Earth with me because, you know, I'd fallen for this guy and blah, blah, you know how that goes. But I'm just not going to go to Mars. There's just no way I'm going to go to Mars. And then it just got weirder and weirder. I'd met him at a festival, and anyway, we got engaged, and as one thing kind of progressed to another, this Mars thing kept coming up, and I'm like, okay, you know, I kind of thought you were sort of joking a little bit, you know, as far as maybe some distant plan in case everything happened. It was a lot deeper than that. He was going to these secret meetings. He actually used the word Mason, he was a Mason, and there was like this alternate personality that he had that was completely different than the man I fell in love with. He would get phone calls, he would drop everything and go off and do these missions, and I'd not know where he was going, and I got really panicked and had this dream that I had been taken up into a ship by chains. I was in the ocean. It was one of those lucid dreams where I could feel the water and the coldness in the air and everything. And these chains had come down. They were dragging me up into this ship. And the ship was filled with people with, you know, dressed in black and had these little microphone things. And this voice came out of the sky that said, you have a choice right now. You either go with these folks or you stay on Earth and you do your mission. And this is another dream. There was a few dreams where I had a voice come out of the sky. One was connected to Four Sticks in a Led Zeppelin song, and Robert Plant played that song for me, and I was like, see, dreams are reality. I was at a show, and I got real close, and he made eye contact, started laughing, and then played Four Sticks. And in the dream, like, 4 sticks rolled towards my legs, and he told me if I was going to be on my path that these sticks would roll towards my legs. Anyway, I just had to throw that in. Because I will meet that man someday and thank him, because he's my brother. So this dream, the voice came out of the sky and gave me a choice, and of course, you know, here's my loved one on this ship, and you know, and I just had to make the choice, and it was easy. I said, well, of course I'm going to do my mission. So all of a sudden, boom, I fall out of the ship. And I land in the ocean again, splash, you know, and I feel the cold, and I feel everything. I feel every emotion and every thought, and all of a sudden, there's some kind of planetary alignment in this. Oh, no, not quite yet. I look back up and I'm like, oh my gosh, my mate's still up there. I need to go get him. I'm like, I can't, you know, I don't want to be away from him. There's got to be some way. So I shot back up in the air, and there was lightning and thunder, and there was no way that I was getting to him. And I plunged back down. Then, of course, you know, I had to go through the sadness. And then I crawl up on this rock, and there's a planetary alignment, and this golden, divine, organic light just filled the sky, and like everything was okay. Well, I woke up in the morning next to him, and I was like, whoa. And this was before I really knew how sophisticated this Mars agenda was. And I kind of, you know, told him about my dream, and he was like, whoa, you shouldn't have told me that. And after that, it was like the wiring in him started to get a little bit screwed up, and he was more willing to start to leak stuff to me because he knew I was onto it. So I started to find out all sorts of things. And but the only way he could really communicate it to me was to undo all the equipment in our house. And because we were obviously being bugged or something. And well, that's what he said. And he said, you know, everything that you do, they know about. That's why you're targeted. Your work and what you're representing, they've picked up on through Looking Glass Technologies, Akashic Records, remote viewing, or he named a few things. Looking Glass I remember, and it was in a few emails. And, you know, this doesn't mean that I'm, you know, a reincarnation of anybody, but there is something that they did notice and pick up on that was either threatening to them, and they wanted me off planet to not do my mission, or somehow they wanted to use me to help reseed a new civilization on Mars, which is what was also leaked to me. So I was like, oh my God, give me a beer, or 6. And that's actually really helped me in life at times, deal with some of this. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, you know, I got twin boys. I got 2 small boys I have to raise. I moved to be with this person, and I'm dealing with stuff that, you know, I've only read about. I've been pretty, you know, aware, and I know all about mind control and this type of stuff. And I know about, you know, some of the stuff in our history and how old it is, but I was launching into a whole nother level of research that I haven't really touched upon yet. And that's what really helped me to understand the ET treaties, things that happened to Eisenhower and his administration, and how he was taken under Rockefeller's wing to become president after the Second World War. He didn't even want to become president, to the point where I visited my grandfather, who's still alive, his son, who would pretty much confess to me and sort of break down that he never wanted to be president. You know, he just, you know, the war was won. He didn't know if he could take on that responsibility. He was a family man, this and that, but the public loved him, and he felt such a strong desire to really, you know, assist this planet, but it just, there was something about it. But anyway, so he became president, and everything got really strange after that. Of course, after the Second World War, the Nazis didn't die. Hitler, I mean, these technologies and how advanced they are were just sort of finding a new form. And it was happening right under his nose, right in the American government. The military, the Pentagon was starting to get power as they were using him as a pawn to make certain agreements in order to promote their agendas that had to do with the gray aliens, ET races, that could very well be, as Dan Burris says, who's an Area 51 whistleblower, the future global elite self that are coming back, trying to preserve their race because it dies out after 52,000 years. Because they're not immortal. They don't have the divine consciousness to be immortal beings. They can only stay immortal through technology. But doesn't mean that like they can't get a clue and wake up and get out of that paradigm. Everybody's got a chance. Everybody was born with a spark. Everybody was born with a divine spark and a divine blueprint. And the real heroes are the ones that are busting through the programs that they were either born into or that have been exposed to. So, I mean, my hat's off completely to, you know, folks like that. And Michael, thank you for this conference and inviting me too, because if I didn't have a voice right now, I might have a stroke. I'm not joking. So, really, it's like everything, it's like this everything coming out of my mouth is almost keeping me alive. And I'm not trying to sound like dramatic. But so here we are. We're dealing with fourth dimensional energies, and beneath that, these agendas. We have 12-strand DNA. We have 12 chakras. We even go beyond that as far as God, Goddess consciousness goes. We trump them like you would not believe. We've got so much more happening for us than they can even come close to. But, you know, it's like the Earth, in a sense, has an ailment. It's got like a cancer. It's like everything's inverted. The pentagram is upside down. There's demonic consciousness. There's these rituals. Everything that's anti-nature, anti-Christ, and definitely anti-Sophia and anti-Mother Nature. Everything's in competition for that power. Nothing, you know, about them has anything to do with going with the flow. They're in absolute competition. They want to run her almost like the most controlling and abusive man that you've ever met. So I'm not trying to say it's about men or patriarchy. It's a male-female thing. And what's coming into our planet right now isn't just about Christ. It's about Christ Sophia. It's about that divine blueprint in us. It's about creating that balance again, realizing that the feminine is divine, the masculine is divine. We come from mom and dad. We're born into that. We have a natural relationship to our mother. We have Mother Earth. We have Mother Nature. We are meant to be her guardians. Christ was the biggest advocate for the feminine. And this is one of the hardest things to really get out there, in a sense, except for in the last couple of years when I broke free of all those recruitments. That has been very welcomed and very appreciated because everybody, you know, is in that process of awakening. And you know, from a very young age, I just, you know, really had this sense of this was going to be the road ahead. No matter how much these dreams were disturbing as far as what had to happen, there was always some way. I always knew, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we're going to do it. I don't know what the formula is. I don't know what I'm going to wake up and even say tomorrow. But I just kind of let go, let it flow, because in that flow, you know, we're able to really access our higher nature. And, you know, these attacks are really intense. They've messed with all my relationships, pretty much every relationship with a man that I've ever had, including recently. And so, yes, it's very derailing. It's very difficult. I don't know if I can even recover the things that have happened lately. But the point is, we, you know, have to stay tough because their goal is to get us off center, throw us into a level of turmoil and emotional pain and anguish and fear, and they'll use anything that they can. There wasn't a chance that they could mind control me because I wasn't thrown into a program when I was young, like some people, because that's almost inevitable. But their tool was to get my heart. And so the best way that they could get my heart was to target the men in my life. I found out when things were leaked to me during that Mars recruitment that there was a list, that they actually had a list of men. So it's you know, one of those things. And being a very, you know, sensitive being, especially representing the Venus energies, because my whole chart is, you know, Venus and Pluto in this whole process, that's really where it hurts most. So I'm here to stop those effing mother... I'm pissed, okay? So what's interesting, too, is we were talking about Catholicism, and it's interesting coming from the Eisenhower family, and then on the father's side, my father became a Catholic priest. My mom, and him broke up, and they got an annulment, and he got permission to become a Catholic priest. He's luckily of the higher order of Roman Catholic that our friend a little while ago was talking about. I've seen Vatican II much more than Vatican I, and I was kind of growing up in where it was sort of shifting over, so I let go of even becoming a part of the church, but I never ever let go of my focus on Christ. I never let go of my awareness of Magdalene, Sophia, and just my connection to that whole story. So he's never been judgmental about the path that I've chosen. But it's just interesting because it forced me to look at both sides, both the political and the spiritual. Really what's happening with the Catholic Church, what's happening to politics. And sort of seeing something in my family where the Eisenhower line, that was almost the last president before this mass manipulation took place. And then my father seems to be one of the last really good priests that are out there. I'm not trying to brag about him, but if you met him today, you'd just be like, wow, what a lovely man. I'm Laura's father, hello. I'm like, I don't know everybody, but he's very just open-hearted, very, very sweet, very wonderful. And it's, people take for granted how much integrity and how much goodness and how much kindness, just really being there for each other counts today more than anything else. This is the magic formula, is our love and our unity, our consciousness, our ability to forgive, our ability to understand that we can't blame each other, we can't hold anybody accountable. We're dealing with mass weaponry, we're dealing with a major war right now. This is, the last legs of it. We're being highly challenged right now. We're all shaken up after Japan. We all feel a bit traumatized. I admit I do. I'm not going to say I don't. But this is why these kind of events are so important, because we're going to do whatever it takes. And there's just nothing in my world that ever convinced me that there would be failure. We have our moments in the day, of course. The reason it's so easy for them to control us is because if we look at the chakra system, our first chakra is our survival chakra, second chakra is our emotional body, third is our power center. As long as they have those three places shut down, we have a hard time getting into our hearts and getting into our higher consciousness, because they throw us into financial survival, we're in emotional anguish, or we're feeling disempowered and mistreated. And then we stay in those vibrations, we can barely function, and we lose the ability to just fully be open and in the heart, which is the bridge between heaven and earth. So when you feel highly, highly challenged, I just recommend people just take a deep breath, get in your heart, find a friend, just connect with somebody, and just allow yourself to move out of the fear, out of the pain, out of the anguish, and just really stay up there, because that's a force field. Even though those might be the folks that are targeted, you cannot imprison consciousness, you cannot control spirit, you cannot do anything to a divine being who's in their power. You can to somebody who's freaking out because they're cut off, but you can't destroy it, like our friend just said, and I live by that. And right now I'm a walking example of how to stay in my center. Right now, I could easily be derailed, but being in one center is like, we can let this catalyze our strength to proportions that are unimaginable. And this is the way that I'm looking at these attacks. I'm like, oh yeah? Well, watch this, I'm just going to stay really high and just really at peace, because, I'm not going to forget who I am. And it's not about identity. It's not about I'm going to try and claim anything. First of all, when I even mention these archetypal names, I get all sorts of hate mail, like, no, but I'm her. I'm like, well, whoa. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to say. That actually makes me happy. Why are you competing? It's not a competition. We all want to be in that mode. We don't have to be the stories. We don't have to be the names. But the point is, we have a divine, feminine, and masculine blueprint. You can call it Sophia. You can call it Magdalene. You can call it Mary. You can call it Isis. You can call it whatever you want. We are all born with it. When we step into that power, we tend to fall into the myths and the stories. And yes, of course we identify with it. And yes, we might think this or that. I had more of it coming at me externally saying that this was the case, but I felt it already. So, the worst thing that can possibly happen right now is if people get into spiritual competition. It's basically taking the third chakra and taking, the concept of spirituality and turning it into a war. I mean, how much of a paradox is that? I mean, that's crazy. So unity consciousness is really where it's at. And the reason this can collapse the military-industrial complex is because they're only feeding on duality. They're only feeding on the wars that they're trying to create amongst each other. The competitions, the breakups, the drama, the money problems, this and that. It's like, okay, those are real problems. We want to be able to make sure we're fed and and have our basic needs taken care of. But the strength of our communities is really where it's going to count. Being prepared, but not in a fear-based way, being prepared to be the ultimate spiritual warrior during this shift time, and to recognize, what we're dealing with. And so my colleagues, Andrew Bashago and Alfred Weber and I, we came up with the concept Alternative 4. It's after Alternative 3. Alternative 4 is the power of the human spirit. That is the alternative. That is the only choice. That is where we're headed. And, say I did go to Mars, maybe I was going to be protected. It was pretty much what seemed to be a friendly type recruitment, except for highly manipulated, until I refused to go. And then I started getting threatened. You're going to be kidnapped, or, all these death threats. And, I mean, God knows how many times I've almost been killed for the work that I do. But, and I don't mean to sound redundant, but I've said this before. I tell them I'm going to reincarnate even more pissed off, and if I'm dead, you have no idea the havoc I'm going to wreak on your life as a ghost or a spirit. And it's just like, you don't scare me. And I write to them. I write to my recruiters, and they're all connected to these blackout programs. And I'm like, you really think you can do this to me? It's just like, this is a joke. I'm like, I'm not scared of death. This is just a vehicle. I'm like, you have effed with the wrong woman. And they know it. So, and there are just a few of, one man is kind of defected, and he's sort of taken my side. He's just like, wow, okay. He's like, well, maybe we should all follow your will now, and this type of stuff. But, I'm not going to believe a word they say, because as it stands right now, they're in major survival. The lower density only represents the ability to easily be imprisoned in this matrix. But we have to recognize that this is so small compared to the rest of who we are. We carry it in our bodies, in our ethereal bodies. It's with us 24/7. It's not like we have to attain it or reach it or go on these, like he said, it's like the New Age deception is kind of, yes, there's some things that can assist us, but sometimes it gets us way off track because we keep thinking we have to do this and do that to attain enlightenment. We are enlightened. We're born enlightenment. It's the amnesia that we're dealing with that makes us think that we have to work for it. The only real work is in learning how to just get along and not be in competition. It's the basic things that we hopefully, I don't know if you learned it in kindergarten, but we have to go back to that inner child, that innocence, that purity, and find, a place to purify and just get over it and move on. And I just have no doubts that we won't achieve what we need to achieve. And even if other people are going to go down a road that we don't want to go, I really don't see that we're all collectively heading in the same direction. I see that whatever we are, whatever we carry, is where we're going to end up. We each have a unique destination. A lot of it's going to be in the same place, but maybe people are going to have to go and learn a little bit more in this particular area. The Law of One understands the whole concept of service to self, service to others. Service to self mentality is a part of not being able to ascend. It's so selfish that it doesn't care about anybody else. And the point is not to be so selfless that you put yourself last, but the service to others mentality right there is an ascending energy. And, people don't have to work their butts off to try and ascend. It's a natural process. It's going to happen. The planet, is an organism. It's like I said, the goddess Sophia is morphed into it. I've been so transparent to it that I feel it in my own body. And I went to a clairvoyant institute for 2 years that could read it. So none of this is made up. I have more validation and more confirmation about the things that I claim than I even want or wanted. Because every time I went into self-doubt, somebody would come along and be like, no, you don't lose touch with that. And so the point is, if we're dealing with a planetary body that's an organism, and it's being attacked almost in the way a cancer is, because if cancer is built on deception, it's built on feeding off of, different energies that, somebody's living a life and they're kind of ignorant to the lies. They see the theater in the government and they kind of buy it. They don't realize what's going on in the shadow government and how much these people are pawns. And deception is similar to, a person living a lifestyle that they think is okay, then one day they find out they have cancer. We have to wake up because we are being invaded by a disease, and it's no different than the laws of the human body and how it heals. The immune system is what needs to be increased. Our consciousness and our spirit is the immune system of the planet. So the more we connect the dots, the more we raise the frequencies, and everything else shatters. So I just think, it's important to simplify this process by understanding ourselves as a microcosm of the greater whole, and to really see, well, how do we get over certain things? How do we get out of abusive relationships? How do we, in our personal lives, not be controlled anymore? How do we cure ourselves when we have those kind of threats in our physical body? Do we do the chemotherapy? maybe some people have had to make that choice, no problem. But there's ways to do it naturally. There's ways to do it with nature. There's ways to have healing support without having to go in that direction, because just like the medical world, they use poisons to alleviate certain diseases. And, you know, a surgeon has to be a surgeon, and sometimes, you know, certain things have to be done. But consciousness and bringing light to the places that have been neglected or in darkness or have been led astray just need that light to heal, because this is where it starts. It starts with the individual. Once we have that down, then we're doing our part. We are activating ourselves as a part of the immune system, as a part of the healing agent of this global transformation. And we're not, you know, the cell that's being attacked, that's turning into the cancer that they wish to create, because cancer doesn't have morals. It wants to thrive and wants to take over the body. Just like this force on Earth, it wants to take over the planetary body. It wants to be in total control and wants to spread its influence as far and wide as it can. And the reason it's demonic consciousness is because it's inverting everything that's good. The pentagram's upside down, when really it's all about Venus, and it's about the alchemy of spirit coming in and turning the 4 elements, earth, air, water, and fire, into this amazing state. And this is what some of these dreams told me, that were very real. And, you know, Alfred was sharing some funny stories with me. Well, I wouldn't say they're funny, but I mean they're profound in a sense. But it's good that we can have a sense of humor. That just some of his work has been inverted and perverted and put out there, you know, in a way that's not his true expression. So, and I found that to be the case with a lot of things. And if we look historically, you know, that's what they did to the Nazi symbol, and we know that. So we are the beings that were from these ancient civilizations. I do believe in reincarnation. I just, you know, I'm not a religious person, but I, like, Christ is my man. So, I mean, I don't, that's all I can say. And, you know, when every relationship melts down, they can't take that one away from me. So I have that at the end of the day, and so do we all. When we really feel like we're at our wit's end and everything's falling apart, we have divine consorts out there. We are naturally merged and in relationship to spirit and this planet 24/7. Nothing else, you know, needs to divert us from that. And none of these technologies, you know, I mean, they're toys in really bad people's hands. And the time that I did have a dream that the robots blew up was when I was up on this hill and these kid toys started to turn evil and they tried to attack me, and they were turning into this big robot thing. And that's when I went down, and this vendor just handed me a whistle. He said, just play the whistle, and everything blew up. And that symbolized not just being a whistleblower, but that if we all play our own song and we crank up the tunes and we just celebrate, we don't have to protest. Let's just protest with our love and our joy and the frequency that they can't stand. Because if we protest through hatred, all they're going to do is be violent with us and treat us like crap. If we, you know, just celebrate, and we, you know, we don't have to force ourselves, like, you know, party all the time, but really, if we amp up the joy and amp up all this type of stuff, not only do we create miracles in our life, and like I said, I'm not coming from some philosophical ideal place. I'm not a trust fund kid. There's no money being in Eisenhower. I've been homeless. I pulled money out of the ground when I needed it. You know, I've lived in the wilderness for a couple years, in 30 below all the way to, you know, 110-degree temperatures, and you know, I've roughed it. I've learned certain tools that have helped me survive, and I did it on purpose in a way because I knew that this would prepare me to maybe assist this planet in dealing with this level of survival that we're in, and that there's all sorts of resourceful ways that we can, you know, get through this. I remember one time I had to catch a plane, and the plane ticket was wrong, and it was going to cost $50 to change it. I was driving the car with my mom. I go, stop. And she stops, and I pull over, and I just go into the grass. I pull out $50. I was like, my mom was like, you got to be effing kidding me. She goes, maybe, you know, you could do that more because you kind of need a lot of help. And I'm like, no, it hasn't happened again. I wish it could. It's like, what did I eat that day? What was I thinking that day that, you know, but I'm always in such, trying not to be stressed. I realized I was just calm. Everything was flowing. You know, these things happen when we're not in survival, when we're not locked into the lower chakra vibrations that they want us to be in. And then I get to the airport, and they said, you can only change the ticket if you have $50. My mom had already taken off, and I was like, well, it just so happens that I pulled $50 out of the ground. And you know, another time, you know, I was drinking beer, and I'm not trying to, you know, impress people with my stories. I'm saying that this is something we all have. You know, I was having some beers, and I just said, you know, I probably should drink water instead. But it was like a really high vibration moment for some reason. All of a sudden, I crack open the beer, and it's water. And I passed it around to all my friends. And this was when I was at the Clairvoyant Institute, so they're not about to, like, believe, like, this could have possibly happened. They're the ones that are questioning everything and making sure that the people they're looking at are being authentic, or if they're dealing with, you know, whatever kind of energies. And I passed it around. Sure enough, it was water. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of coincidence. I think the beer company must have bottled water by accident, and I just so happened to think that my beer should be water all at the same time. No. Deep down, I knew, okay, something happened, and this is the power of alchemy. This is the power of turning lead into gold. We have these abilities. No, I can't do it right now. I can't impress anybody and touch anything right now, but it's happened before, and it's happened when I've healed people and myself. I'm trying to get those energies back. I think a lot of the reasons I'm targeted is to throw me out of that ability, and same with all of you. But there's ways to just get ourselves into a state. It doesn't have to do with New Age or religion or this and that. It's just being in one's body, loving the divine nature within the self, connecting to the planet, the cosmos, and realizing that we have amazing abilities. They're using technology to mimic what we have naturally, and that's why they use it. 6-dimensional frequencies and above don't have technology. They don't have crafts. It's all light bodies, it's all consciousness, it's all this and that. So we can raise our levels back into that. And I was talking, it's not going to be easy for all of us to all of a sudden turn into these great avatars and masters, overnight, even if we were that in a past life. This is why the disclosure of, technologies and the things that have been secret and creating justice and making sure that we go out there and we stand up for our rights happens, because the abuse has to stop, and while we fight this war and recover ourselves and our powers, right in the nick of time before we end up at some kind of camp or some sort of manipulative situation where our freedom and our rights are really being disturbed, we're going to have that magic, just as we're getting our justice. So the two have to go hand in hand. We have to fight for justice, and we have to step into our power on a divine level and realize that that this is the reality, this is the truth. And I proved it to myself too many times to just say it because it sounds good. It was definitely something that I really experienced, and it keeps me going every day. So, time check. If anybody has any questions, that would no questions? I didn't actually go to Mars. I was just recruited to go to Mars. Yeah.
Technology kind of ends after 6-dimensional frequencies. So I've just heard a lot of different ideas how, all of this being a program, or like how do you separate technology from nature? Like, where do you really find that?
Well, that's part of the archonic system. It's an inorganic entity that has been able to mimic the creative energy. Basically, you have the originator, the galactic core, and out of that come the aeons. The aeons are called generators. They're creative beings. Because there was some kind of split in the pleroma and energy leaked out, that, like I said, the panic and the energies that got disrupted created sort of these haunting archonic forces that were kind of coming back. Kind of like when we have a nightmare. We're panicked for a second. Well, because of the primordial sea of chaos and how fertile it is, it started to generate beings that represented that level of fear. And yes, that's kind of an issue. In the Gnostics, I thought that's an error. It's nobody's fault, but it's like this creation is a bit of an error. It's like a whoops. And that's terrible. This is a huge whoops. But ultimately, everything returns to the mother source. Everything returns to the galactic core and rebirths again. We've had a number of big bangs that some scientists have already proven already. And of course, this is the nature of even the evolution of Goddess itself in the galactic core as a conscious being that is going through these different cycles, figuring out what its power is all about, learning about what it is. And we're just locked in a part of that cycle right now, but we got eternity here. This is a moment of time, and we're dealing with time travel. We're not as locked into this as we think. We're just at a very stagnant, very dark, very difficult place, but the prognosis is that, of course, we're going to recover because we're immortal beings, and there's just no way around it. The global elite aren't. That's why they use these technologies. So the difference is that nature and their anti-nature, anti-Mother Earth, they're using things to sustain themselves because they can't function on the natural energies and the frequencies and how much they offer us the same kind of abilities. They've been able to somehow, what they were saying, understand the grid lines, understand the occult, understanding certain dark rituals to harness the power, and the magnetics and the gravitational stuff and the planetary, using all that and for many thousands of years, perfect a way to I mean, they're very smart. I mean, they're very smart. They got powerful agendas, but they're not smarter than the Supreme Being, and the Supreme Being has the supreme agenda.
Let's go to the back of the room here for a quick question, then we'll take some questions from up front.
You said the Greys aren't eternal beings. What about the hybrids? Did you have any information on that, like how they combine with us, what that would mean?
Well, like, yeah, I mean, the whole cyborg thing, I mean, that can keep a person alive, and you know, those that are deprogrammed become, you know, ascended beings, and you know, we can merge this technological world with nature and have the two, you know, become something different. The reptilians, you know, I think are immortal, but they're more, they can be thinned out to a certain level. They just need to be thrown where they belong. It's like demonic energies. It's like they can only thrive on imbalance, and this is why the concept of sacred union is so important. When we're not in balance in our own bodies, look at what happens to us. We get sick easier, we get attacked, we are vulnerable, we have all sorts of troubles, and so these rituals are just a way to generate that sort of mentality so that they can grow in numbers. But you know, once those things start to die down and they get busted and we step into our power, they start to, you know, find their own place. It's like, I mean, when you think about the ocean and ground dwellers, they don't really see what's up ahead. There's not a lot of communication between the dolphins and the you know, the things that crawl on the bottom, but they're still a part of the great ocean. So what we're going to be dealing with eventually is a level of harmony in the ecosystem, and that the terrain and the different dimensions will house the frequencies and the beings that associate with them. Right now we're in it's like Grand Central Station. We got, you know, third dimensional entities, fourth, you know, and mixed in with many masters, and we're just sorting it all out. It's like everything's shaken up, everything's chaotic, but everybody's finding their own way. They're trying to recruit as many on their side, though, and trying to keep us from who we truly are, because they get strength in numbers. As long as we resist it and we stay in our power, we're going to go home again. And these myths are really powerful, because the whole Sophia thing is all about, she is on Earth. She does do this work to help humanity come home with her and to go back to the pleroma and to have a whole new creation, and she exists within all of us. So that's our driving creative, that's our true creative energy. That's where it wants to go naturally. The human body, when it's just doing its, we all want well-being. We wake up in the morning, we want well-being. Doesn't mean that we're not going to lay off the cigarettes, the alcohol, the coffee, the sugary foods, you know. But you know, we know we want to feel good, but yet we do things that aren't exactly good for us. So I mean, it's just, a lot of it has to do with discipline. And also being in such a high state that you can actually handle certain substances and sort of transmute the effects that they have on your body. So I'm not like one to like give up everything. It's just have a high consciousness and just let, you know, your body, you know, it can work out some of these things, but we know when we're a little bit out of balance, and when we might have overdone it. So moderation, of course, is key. But I hope I answered your question.
Okay, we have another question here.
Are the archons the artificial beings? The way I understand it is that, excuse me, the new age is like always telling you to kind of look out or to like these artificial lights that the supposed masters are giving you. But isn't it all about internalization?
Exactly. That's why my focus is telling, you know, helping people understand their divine blueprint. It's not to listen to me. It's not to buy everything that I'm saying or say, oh, you know, well, it's about me using my life as an example to remind others of things that are within them. We have to be very careful about people, especially the return of something kind of energy, the return of Christ, the return of so-and-so. We know there's going to be the return of the goddess, but the goddess, you know, it's about the planetary body. It's about the energy of the divine feminine. It's not something that you can exclusively identify with one person. There might be people who carry it very strongly in the mission to resurface it, but it's very important to be careful who you listen to. And you know, some of these technologies have the ability to use artificial telepathy, so that when you think you're having communication with the divine source and you're being fed information as a channeler, you got to be really careful. That's why I don't channel, period. You know, some people do it and they do it well, but I don't even go there. I go straight for the heart, intuition, my own spiritual process, and that's really what I encourage in others. And that's why I don't have anything to say except for how much it is within, like you said. And our chakras hold that energy and information, and they get clogged up when we mistreat each other, we get angry, and we're in survival. They get all messed up, but we have a constant stream and connection to source. If we plug into gurus too much, if we plug into other people's information, we lose the direct line. The whole point is to really understand that you're just as much that as anybody else, and nobody should be trying to get all that power. spirituality is very important. It's not about competition. It's not about, this is where we do have the unity. This is where we all are equal. Some people might be a little bit more awake than others, but it's not like somebody was born with something that somebody else doesn't have. We have different agreements, this and that. Like, I don't really have, a normal aura. They pointed that out. It's very unusual what they said that I carry. But, we all are unusual, aren't we? So, it makes me feel everything, if anything. So it's like when I was a kid and I was going on that 20-year out-of-body experience, it was because I was feeling everything. It's because I knew that there was a gateway that was going to be really starting to open in 2012. I didn't quite have the date set up, but I was doing what I had to do. I couldn't make sense of it at the time. I wrote a book about it. I'm still trying to retrieve parts of it that were lost. But the point was, when I was doing it, I was cleaning these portals of inorganic entities. And I would just write about it. I'm like, I'll probably never publish it. I probably won't ever talk about it. But, it's just what I do. And then when I went to the Institute, which I stumbled upon, I wasn't trying to go to a clairvoyant institute. I wasn't even trying to get any info about me. It was like it all unfolded where information was handed to me, and they said, oh, yeah, that's what you've been doing. And they also said, you're under attack pretty much all the time, and you'll be okay as long as you can be senior to it. As long as you can keep your frequency above theirs, it'll be fine. But, of course, I'm human. We're divine beings, yes, having a human experience. But, yeah, I'm going to feel. And, of course, when my relationships fall apart because I'm being attacked, I'm going to be going through a lot, but the point is, we have to have a goalpost in sight. We have to know that it's leading to something much higher and much greater, and it trumps them in their game because I tell them, you're turning me into a monster, and I'm going to swallow you all up and spit you out the other end and launch you to the black moon behind Pluto, what is it, Hydra, for what you've done to this planet. So yeah, I'm just getting stronger every day, and it's like, no, I don't want the catalyst to help make me stronger, but it certainly puts a certain level of, helps me monitor on an omen level, like what the balance is, what we're dealing with. It's like a barometer. It's like, okay, their power is still really, really intense and strong on the planet right now. Therefore, okay, here's my response. I'm not going to go into victimhood. I'm not going to go into suffering. Maybe just for part of the day, just a little suffering. But ultimately, it is very catalyzing, and if it's up to our perceptions. It's like mind control will convince of anything. Our core beliefs, just like that hypnotist did, she wasn't going to do something based on her core beliefs. If we really get in touch with what our core beliefs are, and we change them, and even our subtle beliefs, to really serve our highest purpose, then everything we do consciously and unconsciously is going to serve our greatest path. If we don't keep that kind of stuff in check, then even the subtle beliefs will mess with us. Core beliefs are the stronger ones. They're the ones that are going to make you survive and not harm anybody. But the subtle beliefs are the things that get us, falling into traps all the time. I'm worthless. I could never do that. All the futility, all the negativity, all the sabotaging voices that a person has. Those are subtle beliefs that have to be worked out. We have to just fall in love with ourselves all over again and not look at the externals and what our life situation is as a way to really have self-worth. That has nothing to do with self-worth. Success, money, people are so caught up in this game that, and we grow up in schools where there's so much judgment based on what you own and who you know and blah, 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 all this superficial crap. And, it's time to really be deep and go much deeper than that. And I know everybody here is already there, but a lot of people aren't.
Okay, we have a quick question here, and then we'll go to the front of the room.
I'm sorry, this might be a little personal. You said you had twin children. What kind of things do you do to prevent them from going through the same kind of mind control archetypes that you had to go through? What kind of things have you modified, if that's not too personal? Like, you homeschool, or what do you talk about?
I wasn't able to homeschool. I've been a single mom. I've just been, we've moved a ton of times. I had them in a school bus for a while and just tried to live off the grid. But no, it's like I worry about them all the time because it's like they're susceptible, but I take them camping as much as I can. And they knew stuff about me when they were 5 years old. They would just say really weird things to me just about, Magdalene and Mother of God and all this. I don't know. What that was all about, but they're very alert, very aware, very bright boys. And they've definitely, some stuff has been sort of taken from them just being in the school system, and I need a community, I'm not going to lie. So anybody has like a community. No, I'm just joking. But no, I'm doing this on my own. So, I don't have any help. My family doesn't live near me. I get a little bit of financial support. But all I can do is feed them as well as I can and just adore them and love them just illuminate, their divine nature, and they're amazingly strong. But nothing's really messing with them. I don't see that as a potential. But then again, it could be. So I'm ready to pull them out of school at any time. I mean, I took them out of school and took them, hiking in the Southwest after the Japan thing happened. It's like, what do I need to show up at school for? I have to go to court now because I did it. And it's just like, but it'll be fine.
Okay, getting away from the brainwash of our education system, and another question from the audience.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your message. And my question to you is, right here. My question to you is, you talked about a trip to Mars. Has somebody gone to Mars at this point, and how would they travel there? Is it something that they're traveling from within themselves, or are they actually getting on a ship and going? And then, if that's the case, then when did that happen?
Well, this would be really great for when Andrew Bashago talks. He's got all that info much more. My invitation had to do with arcs, ships. But there's teleportation, there's jump rooms, there's but my thing had to do with ships. It has to be with transporting stuff, and there's going to be a bunch of ships, and yeah, it would have been one of those archonic reseeding things, and yeah, that's one layer of it. But really, we are from a true loving source and creator, and that's why they manifest within ourselves all the time, because that's our primordial parents. It's our blueprint. It's in our DNA. And this archonic stuff and this ET stuff, this satanic stuff, has only dumbed us down. It's not our true parents.
Do we have time for maybe one or more? Two more? One more. Okay, here we go.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Aaron.
I just want to say this before I forgot, because that happens sometimes. This is more of a comment. I just wanted to express my gratitude and thanks, because in this work that we do, there's very few female whistleblowers that come out, and when they do, they, by design, usually disappear. Lots of different reasons for that. So I just wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation of your strength for continuing on, because you really go against all odds, and you still come out ahead. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's so sweet, because it's been a rough week, and just the love that we're sharing here it means everything to me. So, okay, is that all? Okay.